Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this free webinar presented by Aleran. Today's session, Extending Business Central into a Modern Manufacturing Sales Engine, is going to teach how connected commerce can simplify your complex sale processes. We'll be spending about 45 minutes together, including some time at the end for questions. The session's being recorded live and will be available on demand after the live event. So you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. As we move through the presentation, please submit any questions that you may have through the Q&A panel or in the chat, and we'll address as many of those as we can during the Q&A portion at the end. And as a reminder, please stay muted during the session. With that in mind, it's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Amy Kamenick, VP of Marketing and PR at Aleran. Amy, I'll turn it over to you now.
All right, thanks so much, Robbie, and thanks everyone for taking the time to join today. So today we're going to be talking about how to extend Business Central into a modern sales engine. So as Robbie mentioned, I'm VP of Marketing and PR at Aleran Software. We're going to walk through about 6 components today. State of manufacturing, selling, and quoting, how to actually do that extension, and then what that modern ERP connected quoting and selling can actually look like, some use cases, and then answer some questions and how we can help, including a little incentive for anyone who wants to book some time afterwards. All right, so going ahead and getting started, I'm going to walk through a few quick stats that may be of interest around buyer behavior that's pretty surprising, actually. So what we've seen a lot is a lot of shifts in terms of who's making the buying decisions in manufacturing and B2B. And in fact, recent data by Gartner has found that 73% of millennials are the ones driving buying decisions. And of those, 38%, in fact, prefer to skip the distributors and just go direct to the manufacturer. So how are they doing that? Well, of those, they just want to even skip the rep. They want to go right to the self-service digital experience. So as we've looked at that, we kind of looked at some different pieces and product features and really wanted to take a deeper dive into the mindset and what is this having an impact on manufacturers in the US today. So what we did is we surveyed 200 US-based B2B manufacturers, industrial manufacturers this past summer. I conducted over 20 interviews with different sales, marketing, IT leaders. What our goal really was to answer the question of what are you planning to do to sell faster, smarter, and more profitably today and into the future? And that resulted in a 3-part series that we called Built to Sell. And we found a number of surprising findings in Built to Sell. A lot of what we found is that these legacy systems, a lot of disconnection in these systems, and just outdated manual processes are costing manufacturers revenue and margin. And in fact, 86% of manufacturers told us that they've lost deals from manual quoting and that it's costing them as much as 15% a year in revenue. On average, they said about 5%. So at 15%, that could be, north of $7 million a year for a $50 million a year manufacturer. And that's a pretty big hit. And so we also, as part of these interviews, I spoke with one integrated marketing agency. They work with exclusively manufacturers, both nationally and internationally. And I thought the owner had a really unique perspective on this from what he's seeing as well. And so from what he's seeing, and I saw this through the data as well, is quoting is such a critical front door to this purchasing and consideration process. And too many manufacturers kind of put up a stop sign or a red flag and say it's not going to work for us, the cost may be too high, or will upset our dealers. But what they have seen as they're working with their customers and their clients through their marketing agency is the ones that are doing and exploring new ways of doing things are the ones that are finding more profitable growth. And so taking a deeper look too at the data that we found in Built to Sell, that there's a number of contributing factors to this lost business from slow manual quoting. This complex approval processes, they're not always working as they're intended to. Sometimes we're also seeing that the pricing flexibility is really lacking. And sometimes we're finding that there's customer requirements that are really lacking. And sometimes that's happening from a lack of communication, either between the customer and sales, or sometimes between sales and engineering. Certainly I hear that when I talk with engineers. All right. So as a result too, our third part of the series was really focused on where then are manufacturers looking to invest. And these were the three top areas that manufacturers said that they're planning to invest to help their go-to-market strategy in 2026 and 2027. And then we'll get to very shortly here as part of extending the ERP and the key role with that in Business Central. Self-service portals, sales order management, and digital commerce are top three that they reported. And part of that too is really taking a look at there's a gaining understanding that not all e-commerce is created the same. And that in order to be able to make any digital self-service experience work, that it has to be ERP connected. All right, so that gets us to extending Business Central. And again, really key here without losing the human touch, because I can't tell you enough of how much when I talk with manufacturers, that human touch is key to who they are, how they work, multi-generations, family-owned oftentimes, and their reputation depends on it. And we completely understand and acknowledge that. And so as you know, on Business Central, it's incredibly strong. You're able to do so much, and it's the backbone of the business. And at the same time, you're constantly, and the teams are coming to IT and the business to figure out ways to do more. And then the challenges there is, do you expand on with other tools? How do you know what tool is going to work? It gets expensive to touch the ERP, both with any custom dev or with IT resources. For mid-sized manufacturers, there's not the big IT resource teams. There's not a lot of time for big IT, transformation projects. And then where does that leave the front office sales? They need ways to be able to serve and go to market. And that is a key piece that's often missing. But that's one way, and the key piece where we at Aleran can really help, and help specifically by extending Business Central. And we do that by really being that connection point between the ERP, the CRM, and then bridging that too with any existing platforms, including the engineering CPQ. So we really preserve, we don't replace. Think of us as kind of that layer that is that customer and that sales friendly layer for sales for the front office that helps serve the back office while maintaining all of those back office systems without disruption. So when you think about Aleran, really it's that end-to-end manufacturing life cycle experience. We don't serve anyone else, any other sectors. We are exclusively built for manufacturing, and we cover that full experience from optimizing content for product discovery, so helping you show up in search, including SEO and AI search, helping from that layer of configuration. And we'll walk through a quick workflow on that front, making it really easy to quote and route those quotes. So it's much easier, much less complex to get those quotes faster. So faster quote to cash. Those orderings, integrating with your transportation management system, our integration with Aleran for tax, making it possible to integrate with your systems and we have portals too that we can easily stand up that we'll talk through for making it easy to order post-order parts, reorder parts, services, claims, warranties, really just that full circle process. So we'll walk through a potential workflow here with using Aleran. So just imagine a buyer comes to your website, they click on a product and they want to configure a quote. We'll walk through a little video of what that can look like too. And they submit a request in this scenario. So sales gets notified, they review that quote and they modify it using our AI that's trained from that ERP and BOM integration and CRM data. The buyer then reviews the revised quote. Maybe they request a discount. And then let's say that discount is considered and approved. And then knock on wood, that buyer places that order. They're able to track that progress online. And I mentioned that built-in Aleran tax compliance integration that we have, as well as that transportation management system integration, where you can the customer can log in, they can see the status of where their order is at, and follow that entire process along. So they don't need to be calling your sales team or your customer service team of where's my order at or where are my parts at. They're easily able to get that and see that super fast, super easily, and not take your sales or service team away from being able to work on, say, for example, customer acquisition or other value-added work to expand accounts. Oops, I'll click on this. All right. Well, sometimes we see too, it's still kind of a struggle because we know it's a really different way of working. It's a high relational process with selling. And there's a lot of concerns, and anything that potentially touches the ERP becomes a big worry, and we understand that. And we often hear a number of different concerns that get flagged, and we'll walk through a few of these top ones that we often hear. So one that we'll start with is there's no way that this could possibly work because our products are just too complex. So while we're talking through, I'm just going to show you a little video here of our AI sales assistant. So because we're connected to Business Central and able to extend that, the buyer can go to your website and say that they're signed in, so it's linked to their account and knows them, and they want to go through, they want to ask questions, they want to see which part would be best for this product, say, that they've ordered in the past. They would be able to get those answers right there, and then they could even go and click to cart super fast, super easily, without having to bog down the inside sales team or service team for those orders or reorders. And it's all because it's linked to the ERP, it's all controllable on the back end of how you want to configure those paths. And then our AI just provides that assistance and that guidance to help walk them through, really as a meant to be an assist, not a replacement for any teams. Another concern that we often hear is, we just can't afford our customers to buy the wrong thing. And, where that comes in too is because, again, we're linked to the ERP. So in this case, linked to Business Central, All of that's configured on the back end for quoting. So say you have your CPQ, that's great. That stays as is. You have your data in the ERP that's linked bidirectionally with Aleran, and you configure how you want some of that standardization for select products to work. Maybe you want certain products to be configurable on your website. Can work that way. Maybe in order for them to be able to configure, you want them to get to a certain point, but before they can get the total amount, you want them to submit for a quote and talk to your sales team. We can do it that way too. So it's really flexible on how that can be designed for you and the best experience for you and your customers and your buyers. So really the goal here is to be able to just ease and speed, make it easy for your buyers to find what they need and easy to help configure and standardize that process for engineer to order and configure to order products. Another concern that we hear, and I addressed this just a little bit earlier too, is, IT doesn't have a lot of time or capacity. And, there's some fear that it's going to be costly to have to touch the ERP. But the reality is, with Aleran Connected Commerce, it isn't a big or pricey IT project. You get that enterprise grade software and that experience for implementation, but without that price tag or timeline. So we're ready to go live in weeks versus quarters. Really affordable, ready out of the box without that custom work. And minimal IT, as I mentioned. I'll go back to that owner of that marketing agency I mentioned that works with manufacturers. We had a call this week and talked a little bit about their products and their process that they use today. And they said today, for the most part, and without naming names specific to e-commerce, they will, it requires them to do a lot of custom development. It requires them to do a lot of plugins that they have to maintain. And this is even, out of the box e-commerce products that are specific for B2B, but the difference is they're not specific for manufacturers, which is why they have to do all of this additional custom development work. So because we're built specifically for manufacturers and to integrate with the ERP and CRM, it makes it just that much faster and more seamless. Another piece that we often hear is that our product data is kind of a mess, and we wouldn't know where to start. So I'm only smiling because I was recently on a call and I heard just that. So I had to make sure to include it. And so what you see here is a screenshot from the back end of the product, and that's all linked. So we have, as I mentioned, Business Central and Connected, and we have a template and a process where all of the data from your products gets inputted into Aleran Connected Commerce, and there's that bi-directional flow. And then we walk you through that process of adding any new, and then you can add in any new pricing or promotions or specific to any customer segments, and specific at an account level as well. So all of that can be really synced, not only from a sales, but marketing perspective too. But again, Business Central remains that source of truth for your product and your pricing data. A lot of times what I've seen when I've talked with folks in the manufacturing community is they have their product data in their ERP. They'll have it in a spreadsheet. And then they'll have, someone or a few people who've been there for 20, 30 years who have incredible institutional tribal knowledge, who may have separate lists or in their head. And so it's managed through a variety of different places and knowledge about pricing. And then you add in quoting and back and forth with spreadsheets and trying to configure that in email chains. And you can see where and you're probably living it, where it gets really complex. And so that's where this is another piece where we can just, including with AI, help make it just that much more seamless. So as I mentioned before, really our goal as we have our AI strategy with Aleran is really to assist. It's not to replace. So today, our AI is really helping sales and customer service teams in that front office to help make sure that product content that oftentimes today, and maybe you have it too, is in PDFs. So those aren't ideal for search engine optimization or showing up in Google searches or AI searches. But within Aleron, we can optimize that for all of that. And that will complement your marketing efforts and teams too. We help with that configuration guidance as we showed that example walking through. And also, we didn't show, but we could walk through on a follow-up how we're able to use AI with upselling and cross-selling. So as you're going through the checkout process, and linked to Business Central, we can show you products that you would be a good fit for, and also recommended products that are similar that you could also be a good fit for based on others like you and their buying history. And we've actually found, based on some studies of our customers, that that's had a 20% plus account expansion lift. And we're continuing to expand that as well. And then future state, we're really excited as we're building out new enhancements on the platform, including with the use of AI, where we're going to be testing out and expanding abilities with a CAD and CPQ content so we can do more predictive and real-time quoting, where we can also leverage the ERP data and competitive research to do some more real-time market pricing. That's something that we've heard from our customers and prospects that they have a real appetite and interest in being able to tap into. And then we're also looking at and evaluating how we can initiate contact ahead of time for service parts or warranty opportunities. So identifying those opportunities, again, predictive selling to help get you out in front of customers before they even think of it or before that date comes up to get you top of mind. And as we talk about this, one piece that's been really interesting as we're looking at the complete manufacturing life cycle is roughly 25% of revenue each year is from aftermarket parts and services. Yet, interestingly, when we do the research, we found just 50% of the profits that accounts for, it accounts for more than 50% of the profits. But the aftermarket experience is the least digitized. So this is where one area, and we'll just briefly touch on a new product that we're launching that's really designed to help solve for the revenue and profitability for the complete cycle. And this is the Aleran Express portal. So we have Aleran Connected Commerce. That's our end-to-end product that includes everything I just walked through, from the AI guided selling to e-commerce to CPQ to PIM, really that all-in-one platform. In addition to that, we are also really excited to launch our portal. And what this is designed to do is also be ERP connected. So another way that you could extend Business Central, but be an even faster, even more affordable way to be able to stand up a portal, whether that's for inside sales team or for buyer or dealers, where you can get that order history, quotes, top products. You can see your order history with your past purchases. You can really get everything that you need in one spot. And as we talk with different folks, a lot of times this is where they need to start, but it's also one of the most underserved areas where it's complex to be able to create and stand up. So that's one gap where we felt really passionate about being able to really help and solve for. All right, so use cases. We've walked through a lot. And want to make sure that as we walk through this, it's can understand what kind of feels and sounds like if Aleran could be a good fit for you now or in the future as you're looking at what your Business Central roadmap looks like. So a couple of different ways where you can think about fits. One, answering the question of, do you get a lot of where's my order at questions? I know when I'm at trade shows, I often see sales leaders come up and say, oh, we have to talk after this show. Let's get some time. My sales team and guys are just getting killed by these questions. I have to get them out of this process. So in that fit, in that area, we can be a really, really good fit. OEMs in particular, if you have a lot of aftermarket parts, HVAC boilers, for example, are good examples there of aftermarket parts or high configurability in industrial machineries. Or you think about you have a lot of configure to order or engineer to order products, and you really need that quote to order speed because maybe it takes days to get that quote, and you really want to shorten that quote to cash, and you want to eliminate some of that manual work. I've walked through with a few sales prospects their process on quoting, and it's incredibly impressive of how they have built out their Excel spreadsheets and using them. And it's also, I can see it giving their sales leaders and IT leaders some heart palpitations thinking about when these folks are at retirement and there's just two people in the company who really know and understand how to manage these complex Excel spreadsheets, and they're managing them manually. They're not connected to the ERP, and it becomes then a risk for the business and to be able to grow effectively too. Another scenario where we could be a really good fit is, say, you just need a really fast digital front door, and you can't afford, don't need IT overhauls. You want to make it affordable. Maybe you are ERP mature with Business Central, but from a business or front door digital experience perspective, a little underserved. Maybe you have a smaller IT team, but you just want to be able to generate and put up some fast wins without making things too overly complex or expensive. We can be a really good fit for you here. I'll walk through just a quick case study with one of our customers. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I am especially partial for Badger Plug. They're based out of Greenville, Wisconsin. They couldn't be more wonderful people. They're coming on their 100th anniversary this year. They're a third generation manufacturer, and just incredible work that they do. I've just had the pleasure of visiting them a couple of times, and they came to us because they were using a pretty well-known B2C and B2B e-commerce platform solution. It didn't integrate with their ERP. They knew that it needed to. They had an inside sales team that was just pretty much getting hit with a lot of questions about where's my order? Can you configure this quote? They have a high volume of products, and they wanted to be able to, especially with a new sales leader coming in, take a more thoughtful, strategic look at where they were looking to grow in the next 100 years and in the fifth generation of the business. So what they did is we went through a process. They selected our connected commerce platform to digitize their end-to-end workflow from digital and quoting and ordering, and without replacing their ERP. So we were able to do those API integrations. Customers are now able to easily log in to view their unique pricing and products. The sales team can trigger those quotes directly into the portal. There's so much less back and forth, especially via email. They can add more value add in conversations in consult than having that focus be on that transaction. And one notable win I just had to add right before this, as I was kind of catching up with that account team working with them, is they actually had one of their biggest orders ever come through, and that came through our platform, and that was for a $40,000 machine, and that came through again our platform versus coming through sales. So further showing about how it doesn't replace sales, but sometimes in these circumstances people are comfortable or they know what they want as part of a repeat customer, and so they want to be able to place that repeat order or that order through that rep-free experience. So giving them that choice to be able to do that is incredibly valuable and can help speed along that process. And so what we've seen with our customers is when all of this works together, it can generate some really measurable results. On average, based on studies, we've seen at least a 26% first year revenue growth, a 18 to 20% average order increase, and 3 months or less on average to achieve ROI. We can be ready, I mentioned, in weeks versus quarters, and even as little as 30 days. Like, we can be ready as fast as you can be ready. That getting the product data is often the hardest piece that teams have because it's spread out across different areas. But and we can get that in order and get you ready quickly. And then there's the time savings. There's not the back and forth with the email chains and the back and forth of configuring the Excel spreadsheets and doing the lookups and checking the different systems. It's just that much more seamless. And I like to say you can start small and build. I have another analogy of eating the elephant one bite at a time, but sometimes kind of the roadmap sounds a little bit better and is a little bit more palatable, but either one is true. With Aleran, you can really start at a place that works for you. Although we are an all-in-one for the end-to-end experience, you don't have to turn on all the lights at the same time. You could start with portals, or you could start with the other product, the Express portal. Or you could start with a portal and then expand to e-commerce in the configurator. So it's really at your pacing as it's all there. And we really do help guide you through that process. And then paired with an expert partner like Sabre, you really have that consultative approach that can do that white glove treatment and be alongside you each step of the way. And as I've been pacing through here and wanting to be a good steward of your time, I would get to the end and have questions here. So I would say, Robbie, any questions that you have, as I can't easily see them in the chat to raise. But I just want to put this plug in that anyone who books a call with us in Sabre will be entered to win a $50 Amazon gift card by the end of March. So contact me. I have my information here, or our sales team. And we'll go ahead and get that scheduled just for a 15-minute connect, learn a little bit more about you, questions you have, see if there's a fit. If there's not a fit, that's okay too. We'd just love to see if there's a way that we can help. All right, so I'll turn it over to Robbie of questions that you have and would love to hear them.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, now's the time where you can unmute and ask Amy directly. I do have a question for you too here, Amy, and that's
Sure.
where are you feeling the most friction between an ERP and the quote to order process?
The
Or where
most
would,
friction.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Can you clarify that one a little bit?
Yeah, so sorry, where would companies feel the most friction between their ERP and the quote to order process?
Oh, sure. Um, it's really what I see is the disconnection, where the ERP is fantastic, but it's not designed to be that sales or customer facing system to hand off a customer quote, a customer facing quote immediately. And what I mean by that is that complex process we often see. We'll see some data from the ERP, then we'll see a spreadsheet. You know, often what I'll see is we'll see, for example, Business Central, and then we'll have someone from sales or that sales engineer or applications engineer, and they'll have their spreadsheet of all the data for quoting, and they'll be working in between either with the team and getting data from the ERP. And then on the other side, they're working with the engineering team and getting data as they're working through CAD and CPQ and the BOM and whatever systems they have there that they're pulling from. And sometimes, depending on the org, the application or sales engineer may not have, depending where they sit or the org, they may not have access to those systems, or again, depending on the structure. And so, and the core theme ends up being this spreadsheet that kind of sits in the middle. And with that back and forth, really ends up being kind of a quagmire of a friction point. So the data gets there eventually to the customer or to the potential buyer, but it takes a lot behind the scenes. And with some of the, tariffs this year, supply chain challenges
Mhm.
and retirements and just changes there, staffing changes. It's just been hard. It's been making that process even harder. Like case in point, I was on a call this week with a prospect. It's a second generation owner coming in of a manufacturer and of an HVAC company, and he was saying about how his dad was just great at quoting. Awesome. He just had a real knack and gut instinct, and they have always been doing it his dad's way. And his dad, yeah, like I said, he just knew it. And the son has a lot of strengths, and he doesn't have that strength to that degree. I would also argue it's also increasingly complex, in all fairness. And so he's really feeling like, gosh, our revenue is really strong, we're growing in that end, but my margin is just constantly getting hit. So he's really looking at different ways of where he can continue to drive, yes, that growth, but also really protect his margin. And in quoting, that's one area where he's really feeling a lack of visibility of, I can't even really get a good read on how much of a hit I'm honestly getting on it, because it's so variable. So that's what he wants to get a better handle on too, and one reason that he's talking with us.
Right. So another question that came in here in the Q&A is what kind of implementation timeline should I expect with connected commerce?
Yeah, really good question. So the implementation timeline, we typically say, uh, about 3 months. It could be as little as 90 days. In some cases, it's gone a little bit longer. In that case I shared with Badger Plug, it did go a little bit longer, and that was because they had such a high volume of products that were kind of needing some love in terms of organization, and they also had a strategic shift with a new sales leader. But they're also a fan of connected commerce, and so that is went up and running and smooth. So there were some variables there of like, hey, this is going to be a big decision for us and how we go to market. It's not just standing up portals or e-commerce or quoting. It's also what products do we want to think about discontinuing some products? Do we want to think about standardizing some products for how we quote? Do we want to think about making some products quote only? So there was a lot of different business decisions that they were making. And again, as a new sales leader came on board, that they were also making. But typically it would be about 90 days.
Oh, that's amazing. And I have one final question for you here, and that is, what type of customer service is provided on the platform for my customers?
Oh, great question. So the customer service provided on the platform for your customers. So we don't have a specific Aleran connected commerce support function for your customers. That would be handled through your customer service team, and then your customer service team would work with us on any customer support. But if you had specific questions or needs or wanted to talk about that a little bit further, concerns, we could totally take that offline. I'd be happy to, and then kind of dig into that a little bit, because I know that's one area the team's looking at a little bit more, and any thoughts, feedback you have could really help define what that looks like. I would also say too, our team, they release new features every 2 weeks. And so they're very fast to prioritize what they're hearing and seeing to make sure that we stay ahead. So yeah, I'd love to talk on the side and hear and see what you're thinking and feeling, and find a way that we can make sure to have that be heard and seen. And if there's a way we can address that, awesome. And maybe that there's some things that we're already doing in the platform that maybe they've recently rolled out that I'm just not aware of.
Amazing. Well, I love that. Amy, I want to thank you for taking the time today. I want to thank everybody who is able to join us. And those of you that are interested, remember to book your meeting with Aleran or Sabre before March 31st to get entered in for that $50 gift card.